Hello, welcome to my off the bench interview presentation. For this interview, I interviewed, redundant, but it works, Antone La from Boise. He is the Vice President of Communications at US Bank, and he's been doing this for a little over 3 years. Before that, he has had other executive and leader oriented positions, such as a public relations specialist at Target, and he was there during the data breach and was ended up being laid off due to that. So for Anton's job, he corresponds with roughly 42% of US Bank employees, which comes to about 70,000 employees who receive communications and directions and information from Anton. So it's very important that he is an ethical and well rounded person, as his job affects a lot of people. So when talking to Anton, it was clear that his ethical decisions all kind of circulate around three topics and three main things. The first being core principles, the second being authenticity, and the third being accountability. Of course, there's a lot of flow between each one. So for the core principles, US Bank has a very strong list of core principles that Anton really identifies with. And during our interview, he brought up a lot how the company itself puts forth a very like other minded presence in the world. And he was very adamant about how US Bank is all not always because we're not perfect, but they try to do the right thing. And when looking up their like core principles, that's the first one on there is we do the right thing. Another one that I found was applicable to ethics is that we stay a step ahead. So with that, and being in communications, Anton kind of connects with that, being that he needs to think ahead and think how to present the company to the world and how to present information to his employees and staying a step ahead instead of being caught off guard. Then the third thing that I found very valuable in the company's core principles was that we put people first. And as we saw with the Wells Fargo case, the employees were not feeling like they were in a position to succeed, so they ended up doing unethical things. And it's good to know that US Bank has values that they put people first, and people would include their employees, their customers, Anton himself, and all those that interact with US Bank. So those three core principles kind of lay the groundwork of his ethical decisions. When he's faced with a decision, it's easier, not easy, but it's easier for him to make a good, solid decision because the company around him has a solid foundation. So the next thing that kind of grounds his ethical decision making is authenticity. Um, Anton was a speaker for my leadership class, and he talked about how he likes to lead with by example, and he likes to show his employees that these standards and these ethical standards can be lived up to, and they're not something that is unattainable in any way. So he's able to lead by example in that, and show the employees that this is a attainable and good thing for them to do. He is also a fan of consistency, and he talks about how it's being an inconsistent leader can leave a lot of employees feeling kind of like whiplash, not knowing which leader or like boss they're going to get each day. So being consistent and like consistent to who you are and not hiding who you are helps create good ethical groundwork, as it's not a fight every day to be a certain way. You're just yourself and you're consistently you. Another thing, which is really important in his job, hence being director or vice president of communications, is open communication. Letting the right people know what they need to know is very important for creating an authentic and transparent work environment, which leads to more confidence in communicating between employee and boss and back and forth. Okay, and then the third point is accountability. There's only one point under this because they all kind of work together for it, but a big thing about ethical decision making that Anton realized is that accountability is key. So, in the scope of communications and public relations, there's a large, like, trend back, like maybe 20 years ago, of the spin or like taking the spin on topics. So, a company would take something bad that happened and then spin it so it like benefits them instead of owning up to what they did. So, he realizes that in order to be an ethical person, he has to own up to what he has done and own up to what the company has done, and kind of valuing the accountability that a company can have, which makes them, more authentic and more have stronger core principles. So they all kind of connect in that. And yeah, Anton, when he was at Target, it was during the data breach, like I mentioned before. And then some of the communication around the data breach or around other like data type breaches at other companies often can bring up the fact that like the company itself is a victim too, because that's true. They are being hurt. But from a consumer standpoint, hearing that a company, oh, we're hurting too, well, the person who is being affected can't pay their bills next month is kind of a confusing way for a consumer to look at a business and see that like I wonder if they really care and if they're really owning up to the fact that their data was stolen and that they are no longer able to do what they are wanting to do as a consumer. So that accountability and owning up to their mistakes, even if it is not their fault, still taking responsibility for what they can control. So overall, ethical decisions around Antone have been surrounded by core principles, and those core principles have been directly from Wells Fargo's, U.S. Bank's core principles. And it was very adamant in our interview that that was a thing that he strongly believed in and strongly kind of bought into. And those core principles are very solidly and ethically based. Second thing is authenticity, and that's with Antone, he really values being a whole person and giving all or his all to the company. And then accountability, working with those around him and making sure that they are able to just be open with him and he's be able to be open with them and create an environment of owning their mistakes instead of hiding them, which can be a lot more harmful as we have seen in many case studies. Thank you. Do you have any questions? No? Okay, I didn't think so.